I wish my dog could read. Think about how great that would be. We could just talk about books. Hello everybody, it is Katie here, and today I am bringing you my first ever Q&A video. So a couple of weeks ago, I finally reached 1,000 subscribers on my channel. It's a milestone that I've been wanting to hit for a long time, and I'm finally there. It's taken me a lot longer to get here in comparison to many other booktubers. I've been here for over 7 years now, but I've certainly had my ups and downs over the past few years. I've had quite a difficult time, so that meant that I wasn't able to commit as much as I'd like to making videos and uploading content regularly. There have been quite a few periods of complete silence when life has regrettably gone to shit. So it really does mean a lot to me to finally reach that goal. So whether you've been here since my Shadowhunters era or you discovered me recently whilst crying over Heartstopper, thank you so much to everybody who has clicked the subscribe button, because it really means the world to me. So to celebrate hitting 1,000 subscribers, I thought I would do my first ever Q&A video. So I asked on all my various social media channels for you guys to submit your questions. I said that it didn't have to be bookish, and I didn't actually get that many questions, which is kind of embarrassing. So that just means that I'm going to have to talk a lot in the answers to the questions I did get, which is good because I waffle. So I'll head to the Instagram questions first because I seem to get a few more on there. So the first question is, did you ever consider reading a Chinese boys' love novel? I have actually read the book that The Untamed is based on, which is The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, but so far that's all I've read. I will consider reading the other stories from that author, but other than that, it's not really something that I delve into. I only really read Grandmaster because I watched The Untamed. Boys' love is a genre it's quite tricky to navigate and to find the stories that I'd feel okay reading. I'm not going to stereotype all boys' love stories because there are a lot of them that deal with really important topics. A lot of them are sweet and wholesome, but there are quite a few out there that play into harmful stereotypes, so it's difficult to find ones that I'd be comfortable reading. So yeah, I've only done the one so far, and Grandmaster was quite easy to access because of how popular it got. And now it's had an official English translation as well, which you can buy in the stores, so that makes that author's work a lot more accessible. So yeah, I'll probably give her other books a try, but I don't have any plans to read any other Chinese boys' loves at the moment. But who knows? Maybe one will catch my eye. So the next question is, what book inspires you to be creative? That is a good question. I would say any book by Alice Oseman really inspires me. I've been following Alice on Tumblr for a long time, so I remember the hype when Solitaire was about to get published, and I remember seeing Alice and just thinking, if they can publish a story and achieve their dream whilst being such a relatable person on Tumblr, then maybe there's hope for the rest of us. So Alice was one of the people that definitely helped push me to finally start taking my own writing seriously. But other than that, I would say in general, any book that focuses on fandoms, so books like Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, whenever there's characters who write fanfiction or draw fan art, it always makes me want to write and create art as well. The book that has inspired me to be creative the most over the past year has actually been The Foxhole Court, because when I reread it at the end of last year, I ended up drawing quite a lot of Foxhole Court related art, and it kind of kickstarted my love for drawing again. So yeah. So next question is, what are you most hyped to see in season 2 of Heartstopper? Everything. Literally everything. The Paris trip specifically, I can visualize it in my mind. I just need to see it come to life on screen. I know it also does get more dark when it comes to Charlie's mental health, which is something that is going to be difficult to watch, but I also do want to see it shed a light on those topics as well. So yeah, I'm really hyped to see everything basically. I would also love for them to hint that they're moving towards solitaire as well. I reread Solitaire after watching the show and I have a newfound appreciation for it, and so even if it's not brought into season 2, I would like them to just give a little hint that they would like to include Solitaire in the series eventually, please. I need Michael Holden. What books do you love to recommend most? I think at this point the books that I recommend the most are always anything by Simon James Green and I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. Believe it or not, I do actually read other books by other authors. It's just that Alice's books have obviously been on my mind a lot more lately. But yeah, I Was Born for This is one of my favourite books. I have something in my eye. I thought I'd be all nice and fancy and do some eyeliner and mascara for this video, and instead I'm probably going to end up with my eyes running. I Was Born for This is easily one of my favourite contemporary novels, so I always recommend that one when somebody is just looking for a single book, because a lot of my other recommendations tend to be fantasy series. And then with Simon James Green, I just recommend his books to anyone who wants a nice light-hearted story. They're just so funny, how can you not adore them? Oh, I recommend The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo quite a lot, just because that is an absolute whirlwind of emotions. And I think everyone should experience it at least once in their life. What else do I recommend? It's funny because my favourite series is The Foxhole Court, but I honestly don't recommend it very often because anyone who's read it will know why. So yeah. Next question is, if you could be best friends with a fictional character, who would it be? I think if you'd have asked me a few years ago, then I would have said Magnus Bane without hesitation, because he was always my go-to favourite character. But now there's definitely a lot more characters floating around up there, but I just can't seem to pick out one. Baz Pitch is definitely on the list, because he's very introverted and doesn't really like to interact with people a lot, and that's something that I can definitely relate to. To stick with Rainbow Rowell, I also think Kath from Fangirl would be my best friend. I also want to say Inej, just because I love her so much, but I honestly don't think I'd be able to be friends with somebody who put themselves in so much danger on a regular basis. It would stress me out too much. But in an ideal world, I would love to be her friend. Not a question, I'm just so proud of you for hitting 1K. Also, I love you. That's from one of my best friends, Jasmine. Thank you so much. I love you too. It is actually kind of down to BookTube that I'm friends with Jasmine, because she was one of the first people who told me that she watches my videos and we bonded. So yay for BookTube making lifelong friends. So they were the questions I got on Instagram, but I got a couple elsewhere. There's one on YouTube because I made a little post. Congrats, really proud of you. Thank you so much. Just out of curiosity, what got you into making videos and how did you start knowing you had to put yourself out there? There was actually a very specific event in my life that made me start making videos. And so BookTube is always something that I'd wanted to do because I'd had my blog for a few years. I loved talking about books. So when BookTube started to become a thing, I wanted to be part of it, but I am a very, very anxious person. I have generalized anxiety disorder, but I also have very, very big social anxiety as well. I also have approximately zero confidence, ever. So the thought of putting myself on camera for other people to view was awful for me. It was horrific. I wanted to do it, but I literally just could not. I was always terrified that I'd get mean comments. I've always hated the way I look as well. And I know everybody has those moments where they're like, oh god, I am ugly. But that was a big part in why I didn't want to make videos as well, because I was worried that people would validate that in the comments, because you do see that all the time, specifically with female content creators, is that people feel the need to comment on the way they look. And I knew that if I got mean comments about things like that, that it would throw me into a downward spiral. So it was the anxiety and the lack of confidence and everything else, all those good self-doubt things that prevented me from making videos for a long time. But then in 2015 I was doing a creative writing course, and part of that course included performance poetry. So you can imagine the alarm bells that went off in my head when I found out I had to do that. When it came to writing the poem, I was just thinking about how I would have to perform it, and I had an absolute meltdown. I ended up having one of the worst panic attacks I've ever had in my life in a bathroom at the place that we were studying, and it was just an absolutely awful, awful day. And it was at that point in that bathroom that I realised just how bad I was at being able to put myself out there and speak up in front of people. It was just something that was completely impossible to me, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to get better at. And so in 2015 I made it my mission to at least try and do a video. And I knew I had a lot of other things that I had to work on as well, but I just wanted to work on this one little thing because it was a goal that I'd had for so long. And so I decided to seriously try making videos. The first few videos I ever made never saw the light of day because it honestly looked like I was being held hostage. In one of them you could see me tear up because for some reason just pressing record on the camera, it was just too much. I would sit there and not be able to say a word. I also couldn't film when I knew other people could hear me, so I would always have to wait for my family to leave the house, even though they were my family. They really weren't going to judge me. They knew what I was doing. And yet, I didn't really start getting comfortable with making videos until Shadowhunters started. I think at that point I was getting so excited over the casting announcements and the TV show updates that kind of overtook my fear a little bit. So I feel like that was the first time that I really felt okay being in front of the camera. And even now I still have times where I'm completely terrified, especially if people can hear me. That's still something that I need to get over, but I am definitely a lot better off for having started my channel, and it did help in some way, so I'm really proud that I managed to do it. So I had a couple of questions on Tumblr as well. These are the ones I'm scared of the most because, you know, Tumblr. What's your favourite houseplant and what's easiest to take care of for a beginner? I could talk about plants all day. My favourite plant is a Monstera. Monsteras are just the best plants in the world. What's not to love about a plant that has holes in its leaves? But in terms of what's easiest to take care of for a beginner, let me start by just saying not a succulent. Everyone says that succulents are perfect starter plants just because, you know, they're small and cute. They're not. I was told that succulents were great starter plants, so when I first started getting into houseplants, it was succulents and cacti that I originally got. Succulents are fussy and demanding little shits. I put them on a window ledge where they were getting plenty of light, and yet they still grew horrifically tall, acting like they were light starved. I spent years thinking that I was bad at keeping plants alive, when actually it was just succulents. Succulents need a lot of light, a ridiculous amount of light. And I do have a lot of light. I have big windows that let a lot of light into the room, but that's still not enough for them. And so eventually I figured out that succulents just weren't for me and I didn't have the right environment for them. So I went in search of plants that could thrive in a lower lit environment, and that's when I started to really become properly interested in plants, because I got plants that I could keep alive. And now I have lots and lots of plants. So I would say that the easiest plants to take care of for beginners, definitely a snake plant. My snake plant is in quite a dark corner on my desk and it's completely fine there. It's very, very happy, rarely needs watering, still growing beautiful leaves despite the fact that it doesn't really get any direct light. It's great. It's never caused me a single issue and I've had it for years at this point. So yeah, I can't hype up snake plants enough. I would also say Dracaena plants. I have 2 of them and they've always been the easiest plants to take care of. My first one I put in a place that got a little bit of direct light but not too much, and its leaves still burned because the light was somehow too strong for it. So I put it right underneath my window where it doesn't get any direct light at all and it's in quite a dark place, and yet it thrives there. They are definitely plants that can weather any storm. There's lots of different varieties of them as well, and they're just really pretty, so yeah. Does your dog have a favourite book? Pet Sematary. So this is my dog. His name is Shoma. He's a Jack Russell Terrier, so He's absolutely nuts. Like all Jack Russells, he thinks he's bigger than he is. He believes he can take on absolutely anything. He did once try to pick a fight with a whole truck. He loves the sound of his own voice. But our lives would be so much emptier without him, and a lot quieter. We rescued him back in 2019, and he'd had 2 homes before he came to us, so he'd had a really disruptive life, and he is terrified of absolutely everything. So he's got a lot of issues that we've been trying to work on with him throughout the past 3 years. But he is very fearful of a lot of things. Sometimes he will just pick something completely random to suddenly be afraid of, even if that thing just so happens to be a book. When I was rereading Shadow and Bone before the show aired last year, I was taking a picture of the book for Bookstagram, and my dog was in the room at the time and suddenly just became fearful of the book for absolutely no reason whatsoever. He just started getting in his little pounce position, running away and then coming back to pick a fight with it and then running away again. It was a book. He's seen books before, he always sees books. On that specific day, he was terrified of Shadow and Bone. He's insane. And finally, what are your comfort reads or comfort fandoms and ships? For comfort reads, I would definitely say Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. Not necessarily the whole series, I would just say the first one, because I can read that whenever I'm in a reading slump and it will just make me ridiculously happy. And I haven't reread it yet because I only read it for the first time last year, but I already know that The House in the Cerulean Sea is going to be a comfort read that I will go back to whenever I need a little boost. In terms of fandoms, Merlin. Merlin was one of my first online fandoms and it still holds a huge place in my heart. Even after all these years, I still adore the show. I still follow a lot of fellow Merlin fans and it always makes me happy. Comfort ships is probably any ship in a Cassandra Clare novel, just because they've been with me for the longest. I will never be free from Cassandra Clare. I probably have a lot of comfort ships, I just can't think of any under pressure. I used to have them listed on my Tumblr, but I haven't updated that page in literally years, so I don't want to look at it because it'd probably be like John Locke. And nobody needs to think about that time in my life. It would be a bit weird to say Andrew and Neil as a comfort ship because it's not really comforting in the slightest, but I do love them a lot. I'm also going to say Tara and Darcy from Heartstopper as well because what's not to love about them? They're just the most wholesome pairing in the entire world. So that was my first ever Q&A video. I hope you enjoyed listening to me waffle on. Thank you to everyone who sent in a question and made me not look like a fool standing here doing nothing, because genuinely I thought I wasn't going to get a single question at one point and I panicked. So thank you to everyone who took part, and thank you again to everybody who subscribes to the channel. I appreciate every single interaction. Whenever you leave comments, it makes my day. So please don't be afraid to reach out and chat about books. It's what I love to do. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!